And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Lizard Wizard. Now, Lizard Wizard is a game which is a follow-up to Raccoon Tycoon from the same company. And in fact, it's kind of like a 1.5 or 2.0 version of Raccoon Tycoon. If you played that game, you'll understand this one. There's some differences between them. This is not a comparison video, so don't worry about that. I'll mention it briefly near the end. If you've never heard of Lizard Wizard before, it is a game in which you're collecting groups of wizards in their magical towers, casting spells, but you're doing so in a very economic engine building style game. So think of it as a stock market game, but with a magical flair in the background. Let me show you. Here's the board for the game. On a player's turn, you are going to take one of 6 different actions. So let's talk about those actions. There are different reagents that a player can have. These are the different ingredients to use for spells. And players are going to start with 3 reagent cards in their hand. On one of the actions you can take is you can gather these. When you do that, you're going to play a card from your hand. And you're going to take, so this shows 5 reagents here. You're going to take 3 of them. So I can take any 3 of these. Then you're going to increase the value of the ones shown at the bottom. So you would just move them up here on the board, basically. So their value is going to go up. And then you're just going to take these, the different reagents, and put them in front of yourself as you're playing the game. Another thing that you can do is you can convert reagents to mana. So as you collect these, in this game, you need to think of mana as kind of a money source. There are gold coins in the game, but really the currency of the game is going to be mana. And as these reagents go up in value, you may want some mana. So when that happens, you pick one. Let's say I have 3 of the Nightshade. I'll sell them here. I'll look at the current price for Nightshade. It's 5. And so I get 15 mana for doing that. Once I sell them, though, for each one I've sold, this is going to go down. So if I sold 3, the price is going to go down to 2. So as players play a reagent card from their hand, and you always draw one at the end, that will give you some of these and increase this, then by selling them is how they go down. So it's very similar. I mean, and let's not pretend. It's essentially a sort of a stock market. Now, something that's going to affect you getting reagents is the wizards. So recruiting wizards is something else that players can do. You're going to pick one of the wizards that's available here, and wizards will have a different school of magic shown here, but they also show a reagent in the corner. And if you have a wizard, whenever you collect reagents, you're going to get an extra one of that type. So I would get an extra horn if I had that wizard. When you pick up a wizard, you're going to be battling over it in a duel, which is also called an auction. You just keep bidding different amounts of mana until somebody wins. If the person who starts the duel, or starts the auction essentially, if they don't win it, then they can pick another action. So they'll keep going. In fact, you can keep putting them up for auction until you win one, but you could also switch to another action that you can take. Down in the corner of the board, you can also get a research spell. Spells here cost mana, so these cost 5 mana to take them. So when you take a spell, you'll pay that mana to get the spell. You put the card face down in front of you. You own it, but you have not yet cast it. But as soon as you take one, if you have the necessary reagents to cast it, you can. So you see this one here costs 4 horns. And this one is a one-time, says take any available card for free. This one changes one of your familiars, becomes a wizard of the same school. This one lets you store an extra 10 reagents. Normally players can only keep 10 reagents from turn to turn. This says giants don't hit and instead give you 1 gold. That's a monster that might show up in a dungeon. It won't affect you, and instead you get a gold from doing it. And there's all kinds, and I don't think they're all unique, but there is quite a few different spells in here. Some of them are permanent, and some of them are one-time use. Like here, increase the mana value of a reagent by 3 before you convert it. The targeted player may not enter the dungeon, so some of them are one-time uses against someone else. Protect you from a negative spell. Wizard's cards are 2 extra victory points at the end. Familiar are 1 extra victory point, and so on and so forth. The last two actions are building a tower or summoning a familiar. To build a tower, you simply need the reagent or gold coins, and the towers are placed in order. They're going to get more expensive as the game goes by. And so you'll take the tower and put that tower in front of you. Towers increase your reagent storage by 1, so the more of them that you have, but they also give you symbols that might be useful for different cards that are played. Familiars are different here, and when you buy one of the two familiars, you're going to pay the mana that up here, and then you have 4 different things that you can do underneath it. First of all, it's a fast way to get some reagents. So, for example, this says collect 3 Mandrake and then cast spells. So if you have spells and you have the reagents to do them, you can do that. You also can do new research here, which means you'll clear all 4 cards from the spells, and then a new one comes up, and then you get one of those for free. So it gives you a free spell. Not really free, considering you paid to get the familiar here. You can also score the familiar. So when you get the familiar, you get 1 gold coin, and that's what's down here at the bottom, for each card that you own that shares the same school of magic, which is up here, as the familiar. And then finally, you can go into the dungeon if you want to. The dungeon deck is right below here, and in the dungeon deck, you're just basically playing a kind of a push your luck style game where you're turning cards over and looking for treasures, but you're not looking for monsters. This is a giant monster. Remember back when I showed you that card that said giants don't affect you, instead they're 1 gold. But let's say you don't have that. That's a monster. And if you ever, and the monster kind of hits you, but if you take 2 hits, you're out. But you can keep drawing and try to get as much treasure as you can. But if another monster comes out, then boom, you're getting nothing there. Otherwise, you're going to keep these treasures, which will be points at the end of the game. The game's going to keep going till it ends, which will be caused by one of these decks running out of cards. When that happens, you're going to score victory points. Each wizard and tower combo, you need one of each, is 5 points, but it could be 10 points if the school of magic matches. So let's say, for example, I have this tower and this wizard here. You can see their school of magic matches, so that would be 10 points. Spell cards that you have, as you collect the different spell cards that are the same school as a matching wizard tower pair, are also worth 5 victory points. So this one here, and you keep them whether you cast them one time or they're a permanent ability in front of you. Anything that you can't pair, like wizards and tower cards, are worth 1 victory points. Gold coins are victory points at the end of the game. Spells can possibly be worth victory points. I had pointed some of them out earlier. Whoever has the most treasure items from the dungeon deck gets 10 points, and the second most gets 5. And then achievement tiles, which are up here at the top of the board, and it's the first person to get something like 5 wizards or 7 horns or 7 towers will take those achievement tiles, and those are worth 10 victory points each. Whoever has the most victory points is the winner of the game. So everything fits in very nicely in the box here in these containers. I don't know that I like that, this piece fits in between these. It's kind of a weird thing. But these tokens are fine. They do look a little the same, and you'll never remember what they're called. But they do fit these containers really well. Then over here we have the different tokens and money and stuff. The board, it all fits in here really well. The cards here are a little messed up. You can see the box has been moved a little bit to get to this spot. But other than that, I'm really happy with the quality. The cards have a very good, they're linen, well, they're not completely linen finished or slightly linen finished, but it doesn't matter. They're really well done, and it all fits in the box nicely. So it's as with most Forbidden games, a very good high production. So there you have it. It's a very straightforward game, but it doesn't look like it at the beginning. You have 6 different actions. Understanding those actions is going to be a bit of a work. The best action, the most interesting action, and my favorite part of the game is the reagents at the top. You basically discard a card, you're moving up the reagents, and then collecting them, and at some point you decide to sell them. You want to see how high you can push that price before you sell them. But you're also collecting these reagents because you use them to get towers and the magical spells. My favorite part of the game is the spells themselves. There are so many different spells in here. I want to say they're all different. I mean, there's a few that are the same, like that plus 10 reagents, and maybe there's 2 of each. There's also cards that add trap cards to the dungeon that when they show up, they just bust someone immediately. So if someone else is using the dungeon too much, you can do that. And there's victory point cards in here. They all cost the same. They have different icons at the top. So I like these too. They're just fun, and they're going to be unique and interesting. The Tower Wizard combo is kind of a weird mix in that the towers, you just straight up buy them. Get the reagents and buy the towers. While the wizards are auctioned off. And it's cool to have the wizards, but you need to save up the mana from basically selling your reagents at some point in time to be able to win those as a bid. And the game has this mechanic, like I mentioned, that if you don't win one, you can take another action. The problem is I've seen sometimes people have auctioned off 3 or 4 in a row, like I will win one eventually, helping other players out who are like, oh, now I don't have to waste my action on that. The familiars are interesting, and the familiars are both one of the more interesting parts of the game and I think the weakest part of the game. Now, if you watch my videos, you'll know that I love push your luck stuff. That dungeon deck where you can go into it, you have to get a familiar to do it, which it's kind of a weird mechanism. I almost feel like the dungeon deck should just be an action you can take. I mean, it is, but it's not intuitive to summon a familiar to let you then go into the dungeon. That's just not intuitive at all. And the fact that the summoning of a familiar has 4 different actions on it really kind of breaks the flow of the game. You like pick it and you'll be like, I'm going to do this to take 3 resources. Fine. But why does that also let you do the dungeon? The familiar being 4 different actions I felt like was a very fuzzy, messy mechanism of the game. And then going into the dungeon itself feels, so again, I like going through a dungeon deck, flipping cards and deciding when to stop, and you get treasure, which it's not as exciting as it sounds because at the end of the game, it's 10 points for who has the most, but you get 10 points for a matching tower wizard combo. You're probably better off going for that unless you get magic cards that give you stuff. But if the designer had brought this to me and I was playing this, I would have said, wow, that dungeon mechanism is something I often like in games. Cut it. Why is it here? And in fact, I would cut the familiars completely because they just feel messy. And you know what? I might, if cut those 2 things, the rest of the game flows pretty smoothly. But if you do that, you have Raccoon Tycoon. Raccoon Tycoon is a game I really, really like. And I'm going to play it a lot. I really enjoy it. I like the Lizard Wizard theme better. I like the Lizard Wizard spell deck better than the buildings in Raccoon Tycoon. Everything else, I like Raccoon Tycoon better. So between the 2 of them, that's the game I'm going to get because it feels more streamlined. But you might like that extra stuff. And if Raccoon Tycoon didn't exist in this universe, this is a fun game to play. Looking at Lizard Wizard on its own legs, I like it. Yes, I think the dungeon is unnecessary, and I don't think it's worth going into, honestly. I have done heavy dungeon pushing in the game, and it doesn't feel like it's worth the points. The familiars, like I said, are messy, but it still has this stock market thing. Yes, they're reagents, whatever, which incidentally here at the Dice Tower Studios, we've been getting a lot of buzz and we didn't know how to pronounce reagent because it's not a word people use very often. And I followed basic English principles where the A is silent in a 2-vowel word. And we call them regions. But yes, we apologize for not knowing that. But now we know. Anyway, reagents, it's kind of a funky, hey, you get these reagents and you're selling them on the stock market. Yes, you're selling them for mana, but it is a stock market. So there's that silliness in there. I like the art for the game. I like the pictures. I think they're gorgeous paintings. The board is a little dark, but once you put all the cards on it, it brightens up. The rules aren't difficult to teach and play other than the familiars, like I said. So by itself, in all that regard, it's fun, and I enjoy it. It's just that with Raccoon Tycoon in existence, I'm probably going to play that one first. So Lizard Wizard, it's a good, cool game, and I like it a lot. If you already own Raccoon Tycoon and you're thinking possibly you want it more, you want some more complexity perhaps, then this is for you. Or if you don't like the theme of Raccoon Tycoon and you like the magic theme, then this is the game for you. So that's Lizard Wizard. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment approved.